All right, so let's talk about Davante Adams because he is currently unhappy with the situation that the Las Vegas Raiders are in and their offense. They lost Derek Carr. He is in New Orleans now. They went in and brought Jimmy G in during free agency. Davante Adams isn't happy. And here's what he had to say on the Raiders offense. He said, "We don't see eye to eye on what we think is best for us right now." And so my thoughts on whether or not the Saints should bring in Davante Adams, I think it would be really, really cool. The idea of it would be sick. It would be so fun. And you could not tell me if Davante Adams was in this wide receiver room, it would be the best wide receiver depth chart in the NFL. And that is a fact. I am not willing to debate that because it is just true. That being said, they were homies back in college. They were quarterback wide receiver duo. They were teammates in Las Vegas. I just don't know if it makes sense for New Orleans or the Raiders. And I'll tell you why. But let's talk about why Davante Adams is a polarizing player. In 2022, 17 games played, 100 receptions, 1,500 yards in the season, 14 touchdowns, and just over 15 yards per catch. That's pretty damn good considering the Raiders were a dumpster fire last year. I'm sorry, John Borelli. The Raiders just weren't a great team last year. They weren't in a great situation, and they did have a lot of adversity to deal with. And my take on it as a whole, trading Davante Adams doesn't make sense for the Raiders, and it also doesn't make sense for the Saints to go and trade for him. You have a loaded wide receiver room, and at the end of the day, the Raiders would eat like $30 million plus on it. So even if you wanted to try and make this trade happen, you would have to give up like 2 or 3 or 4 first-round picks just for it to make any sort of sense for the Raiders, because that is a lot of money to eat on a player that's really, really good, a really key piece of their offense. It just doesn't make sense for either team. And let's look at the wide receiver depth chart. I mean, this thing is loaded. This thing is loaded with talent. You got Chris Olave, who's in year 2, and he, by the way, he's rocking braids right now. He's going for 2,000 yards plus this year. I'm not even arguing it. He is going for 2,000 yards and 25 touchdowns. I know it's an exaggeration, but he's going to be a dog. Michael Thomas is back. He's got a lot to prove. He's on a prove-it deal. He has a statement to make, and it is up to him to make that. Rashid Shaheed, the speedster. I have the need for Rashid Shaheed because I love that speed. He is awesome. He is a fun player to watch. A.T. Perry, your draft pick. Keith Kirkwood. Brian Edwards brought in as a pass blocker. There's some familiarity there with this time with the Raiders and Derek Carr. James Washington, former Pittsburgh Steeler. He was hurt last season, but he is healthy. He is cleared. He had a foot injury. He's going to be good to go. Traquan Smith might be he's a likely cut candidate, but Malik Flowers, Shaq Davis, Kwan Baker. My point is, this is a loaded wide receiver room. There's a lot of talent here, and at the end of the day, it just doesn't make too much sense for me. But I want to ask you, because the show's not about me, it's all about you, Saints fans. Should the Saints go and trade for Davante Adams? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I can't wait to see what you guys have to say. This is the pinned comment on today's show. So if you get hit with the YouTube ad break here, take advantage of it. Scroll on down, share your thoughts, and by the time the video is done playing, scroll on back up and we'll be back. All right, so now let's talk about Quinnen Williams. The current Jets defensive tackle, the former Alabama Crimson Tide player, he's not happy. He wants to get paid. I don't know if he wants to stick around in New York. And we're going to break this all down, but I need to ask you something. I need you to subscribe if any of these 4 things apply to you. If you hate the Falcons, if you just think that the Atlanta Falcons are a poverty franchise, you think that 28-3 is the funniest thing that's ever happened in sports, I need you to subscribe. If you want daily Saints videos, I need you to subscribe. If you love live shows and interactive content like where we film this, it was part of our live show every other Wednesday with my guy, producer Seeps, you better subscribe. And if you bleed black and gold, you know what I'm about to say. I need you to subscribe. We're trying to get to 15,000. We were getting pretty close. We're about 14,400 subs. So 600 away. Help us out, lock us in, and let's get to 15K. All right, so Quinnen Williams. This was his Twitter bio. And yes, we do have to talk about it because, yes, it does make a difference when players are, speaking in cryptic whatever on the social media. It doesn't matter. You can read what it says here. Defensive tackle for ... And a lot of other dots after it. But it doesn't say the Jets. It doesn't. And here's what he most recently retweeted. He retweeted a post that was all about Dexter Lawrence's contract extension and him getting paid. He wants to get money. Like, Quinnen Williams is a player that is very, very talented, and he deserves a good paycheck. And if the Jets aren't going to give it to him, he's ready to go. And I think that bringing in Quinnen Williams would make this defensive line depth chart unbelievable. I think that this defensive line depth chart with Brian Brzee, Nathan Shepard, Colin Saunders, I think that those guys are incredible defensive tackles. Malcolm Roach, he's back. Jack Heflin, former XFL Houston Roughneck. He got brought in. Nico Lelos, he was with the Seattle Sea Dragons in the XFL. He has spent time with the Saints earlier in his career. This is a good defensive line, but I think that bringing in a guy like Quinnen Williams would be unbelievable, and here's why. These numbers ain't messing around. This is not backyard football numbers. This is not the numbers you put up. Actually, no, it is. These are the numbers you put up when you're in your recess league back in 4th grade when you were, getting geared up and you had the sweatband on. You get to the water fountain afterwards. You take a 10-second drink when you know the rule is only 3 seconds. He still put up 55 tackles, 12 tackles for a loss, 28 quarterback hits, and 12 sacks, 16 games played. He's durable. He is mean, and that guy produces. He's a tackling machine. And as for what he's seeking in terms of money, he's looking for about $25 to $30 million. So you would have to eat some money. You would have to pick up a lot of money. You'd have to pay him and extend him. But if any team knows how to do any sort of money movement around or anything, or as Nick Wrong likes to say, Ponzi scheme, shout out producer Seeps, he also thinks it's a Ponzi scheme. The Saints can figure it out financially. And I cooked up this trade idea that I think is pretty interesting. Quinnen Williams and a 6th-round pick. We give up a 1st and a 3rd. Maybe you have to give up a little bit more. Maybe it's a little less. But this is what I was thinking in terms of a trade idea. So would you do the trade? Let me know, Saints fans. Type T for trade. Type P for pass. I'm curious as to what you got to say because I think that this trade makes some sense. All right, so now let's talk about Michael Thomas. Does he have a 1,000-yard season incoming? Could he hit that again? Sure as hell could. Mickey Loomis talked about it, and here's what he had to say. Absolutely he can be. Just got to get him healthy. He's worked so hard at that over the last 2 years, or last 2-3 years. And look, the results haven't been as good as we all hoped. But it's not because of a lack of effort or desire by him. That's for sure. I mean, it makes sense. Has it worked? No. He's missed time. He's missed a lot of time. But the question more so, in my opinion, is can he hit 1,000 yards? 100%. Without a doubt, without a fail in my mind. There's not a doubt in my mind that he can get 1,000 yards. But do we need him to hit 1,000 yards? Absolutely not. When you have players and you have pass catchers, excuse me, I was trying to, pardon me for moving the mic around, so if that wasn't too loud, but if it makes sense here, I want to just lay this out. When you have pass catchers that include this loaded wide receiver room that we're showing again, but then you also throw into the mix Juwan Johnson, Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams, Kendre Miller. You also brought in Foster Moreau. That's a loaded team. That's a lot of weapons. So the question is, can he hit 1,000? Yes. But do we need him to? No. I will continue to say you don't need him to be a 1,000-yard receiver. Sure, it'd be nice. Absolutely, it would be nice. But Michael Thomas puts up 950 yards, 7, 8 touchdowns. Are y'all really going to be complaining? Because I think that Chris Olave is going to get a lot of touches. I think Rashid Shaheed's going to get a lot of touches. I think Foster Moreau is going to get a ton of touches. Same with Juwan Johnson. I think these are all things that you got to consider. And as for 1,000-yard seasons, Michael Thomas did it his rookie year. He did it in his sophomore year campaign in 2018, and then back in 2019 when he was just unstoppable, can't guard Mike. I mean, these are just numbers that show he can do it when he's healthy. But again, I will continue to say it. You don't need him to be healthy, or you're not healthy. You need him to be healthy. You don't need him to get 1,000 yards to have a successful season. So guys, if you love Can't Guard Mike, if you want him to be healthy all season, if you want him to dominate all year long, type 13 and like this video. And we did actually just have some news come in from Aaron Wilson on the NFL waiver wire. The Saints signed Scott Lashley. He is a former Mississippi Bulldog. Didn't do a ton. He's an offensive lineman. He had 58 snaps as the backup right tackle. He played at Alabama for a little bit. So just worth noting that also happened. Another reason to subscribe, because we're giving you news on the fly during our live show. So lock us in, subscribe, type 13, and like this video. And without further ado, y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.